We're going to talk about what is the future for retail and e-commerce and how can technology affect positive change. We're going to talk for about 20 minutes and then we're going to open up for Q&A. I think we're going to start, we've been talking back there, there's so much, we've talked about so much already, there is so much to discuss and it seems like an infinite subject. So I'm going to open up and start by asking both of you, we're here in London, the new centre of technology after Silicon Valley, we think. What, for both of you, are some of the big new British tech companies that you're both excited about right now? What's leading the way?
Start with me. I think on the one hand, you could talk about companies like SwiftKey, that sort of the world's biggest Android app. It's, but the interesting thing about saying that, SwiftKey is a really exciting keyboard for your Android and iPhone. It comes out of Cambridge. It's a load of PhDs. It's really clever maths, all that stuff. On the other hand, it's basically the only really global British brand. You could talk about, if you sort of expand it to Europe, then you could talk about Spotify or Last.fm or Skype. But Britain really hasn't managed to get to that serious level of engaging with billions of consumers. And I don't necessarily think there's anything per se wrong with that. It's not like we're not doing one big thing, but when it comes to where's that one brand, it doesn't yet exist unless you've got something up your sleeve.
I agree with Matt. I mean, I think this is one of the conversations we were having when we were in the back room, was that I think that what you see out of Silicon Valley, you see out of the US, is a lot of B2C companies that have very big names, have a lot of consumers, a lot of eyeballs. And what you see coming out of Britain tends to be B2B, behind the scenes, no less important, but they just don't have that brand that kind of communicates across the world. I do think from a fashion point of view, I think the one big name at the moment is Farfetch, that I think has done incredibly well. We've seen how they've grown both from a European point of view and from a US point of view at Shopstyle. I think their model is, very interesting, and you can see that now that they're a unicorn in the sense of Silicon Valley. They've done a very good job. They're very smart, and I think they're definitely a company to watch.
I mean, I think one interesting point though is that almost all of the really interesting stuff that Google does for its Android development is done opposite Victoria Station in London. So there isn't a British problem, if you like, but there is an ideas problem. Okay.
And do you think there's a lack of resources? Do you think that the government needs to be putting a lot more money into this for the future generations, for the children, or it's more it's a European mentality? We're a little bit more, a little bit slower than the Americans. We have a little bit more time to ourselves in the evenings.
To a degree, there's an investment problem in the sense that the Silicon Valley bubble has got so much cash for ideas, and they're willing to fail, and that idea of sort of the best thing to do is to fail really quickly because then you can move on to the next idea, is a really good one that Britain and Europe as a whole doesn't really have. On the other hand, I think you're kind of right, is with Tech City here, then the government has really tried to sort of pump prime some stuff, but you can't change a culture overnight.
Yeah, I also think it's the size of the market. I just think the size of the US market, when you start, you already have 350 million people. When you're starting out of a European market, you might be thinking locally first, and then you start thinking about the European market, and then you start thinking globally. And I think when you look at the US, you're already sitting there thinking, like, I've got 350 million people who I can go after very, very quickly. So I kind of see why you see a different in the way that you think. I mean, I remember way back when I actually tried to start a company, and this is why I work for other companies now, but back in 2000, and we had done the math, we were doing our business plan, and I remember actually saying, I think there's going to be a 5% penetration, and my mentor at the time, I was in the German market in Munich, and he was sitting there going like, 5%, like that's a lot. And the minute I did that and I brought the number down, I was no longer profitable. And so at that point, I was kind of like, I'm not going to ask anybody for the money because I didn't think that I could actually have a successful business model if my penetration wasn't going to be right. So I just think it's a size thing as well.
When I launched Daily Candy, which was a huge American company and had 4 million subscribers, this was back in the day when editorial, it was the first e-editorial company. And I launched it over here, and the growth was as anticipated, but the numbers were just so much smaller that I had to work so hard to keep them going and to remind them how well I was doing from scratch. Yeah. But they just were always a little bit disappointed at the beginning because the numbers were much smaller.
Well, we see that at Pop Sugar. I mean, I work for both Pop Sugar and Shopstyle. I don't know how many of you.
Do you want to just clarify both? Pop Sugar owns you. It's a parent company.
Exactly. Pop Sugar is a parent company. How many of you have actually heard of Pop Sugar? Oh God, that's great. How many of you have actually heard of Shopstyle? Oh, even better. Okay, good. But so from a Pop Sugar point of view, I know before I came in 2013, we had actually had an editorial staff here for a couple years where we had 4 dedicated editors in the market, and they just didn't have the traffic. And in the U.S. they have 70 editors because there's just they're doing I think almost 60 million unique visits per month now. And so when you look at the UK, it's a much smaller market.
Right. Okay, so talking about our key companies, I now want to talk about us and what you do and what we do. How does a company essentially these days, today, and the answer is going to go on forever and ever and ever, how do you turn browsers into buyers? I want to talk about how you've experienced that with Shopstyle and then talk about some of the other apps and things that are happening out there that encourage traffic and actually turn traffic into sales.
I mean, for us, we're a search engine at the core. We are.
Would you call yourselves an affiliate, or is that word very passé now? Is it very last week?
I don't think it's a last week word. I mean, I definitely we run in the affiliate circles, but I view us as more of a partner to retailers than just being part of the affiliate marketing channel. And I think that's something that I've been working really hard in the past 2 years is to get people to stop thinking of us merely as sending them traffic and thinking about other ways that we can partner in which that we can think bigger about the way that we work together ultimately. I mean, we're, at the core is search at the end of the day. And, the majority of the time that we're spending now is on big data and to really think about how we can get the most relevant search to the individual, right? And I think at the end of the day, when you look at typing in something, you type in little black dress. In the old days of search, you type in little black dress and it was just very generic. You'd get anything that was a little black dress. Somebody has basically put in their product description, little black dress, right? I mean, that's the core. And I think now people are expecting more. People are expecting, okay, that I typically buy something from Net-a-Porter, or I might buy something from Amazon, or I might buy something from River Island, or I might buy something from Boohoo. So knowing where I normally typically shop, give me the results that reflect how I actually consume. And I think people are getting there, but I don't think it's quite there. And I think that especially in a meta search like we are, of course we're highly dependent upon the product information that we're receiving from the retailers. We're only as good, it's always the phrase garbage in, garbage out. We're only as good as what the retailers provide. And we have to take that information and try to be smarter about the way that we process it to give it back to somebody. We're successful if somebody comes to our site and I send them to a retailer and they purchase something. Because I'm being paid on a commission model, either CPA or CPC. And what I want is somebody to think of me at the very beginning of their search and to say, I want to go buy, I always use example like a blue fitted shirt. And if somebody wants to come and get a blue fitted shirt, they can type in blue fitted shirt and I'm going to show them the right blue fitted shirt that they will go and buy it. And that's how we are converting people.
And you're encouraging new traffic to the site. How are you encouraging repeat traffic?
Well, that's a really important question. Last year was the year of stickiness. I think we had Project Honey was the name of the project, but it was all about how I think when you have content sites, when you have something like Daily Candy says it all. You want somebody to come every day to consume new content. When somebody goes shopping, in most cases, they're not buying something new every day. But what you want is for them to think about you the next time they want to purchase something. But what we've done is actually we have things called editor's picks. We're writing a little bit more content. We know that when people actually interact with the content on our site, that they spend 4 times more than anybody who just comes to the site.
4 times more.
4 times more.
Matt, your content is your product. essentially.
And I think what's interesting about what we see is our opinions obviously are still valued. If you're going to see a film or a play or want to buy a new phone or whatever, then the stuff that we do is obviously still valuable. What we also see though is that we're now competing against the brands themselves. And so if you've got, so Samsung's ability to market its own phone or Jimmy Choo's ability to market its own products or whatever is something, if you've subscribed to that Twitter feed or that Instagram or whatever, you are going to suddenly be exposed to the completely unmediated version. And we've got to demonstrate that we're actually adding some value to that. And then we've either got to find a way of making the link that says, now go and buy some cinema tickets to something which just said is a really terrible film. Or now go and sort of do something that is related, or just go and read some more stuff on our site, because ultimately we remain an advertising business, right? The media is all about the adverts that go next to it, and for now the commerce side of it is going to be a growing and increasingly important but secondary part of it.
And it's obviously tempting when you're writing about the film that you want to give an objective view. I launched a big blog at Time Out, and it was then led on to, they tried to up the digital, selling of tickets. But it upset quite a few critics, because obviously you can't sit there and say this film is absolutely appalling, here's 1 star, and then do go and buy tickets. Yeah. And that's a difficult thing to do, but that's why we come to you, is for your informed opinion. And so you obviously, as a journalist, stick to your opinion at all times.
You've got to have some faith in the reader, right? It's sort of you know that they might, if you're really stupid, you might blow it once and then they'll never come back, and that's not really a sustainable business model.
And are you guys at the Telegraph now? Are you being asked to write twice as much content as 4 years ago, 3 times as much content? And what balance is that of print and digital online?
It goes in, the quantity versus quality argument obviously goes in peaks and troughs, right? In the sense that every photo galleries didn't exist in print in the same way that they do online. Everyone knows that photo galleries are hugely popular, if only from your own experience. As an example, everyone's seen the growth of quizzes and GIFs and all of that stuff, and all this digital content takes time to create. So there's more of that, if you like. Ultimately, however, our brand rests on the quality of what we do, not the quantity of it. And actually, people will very often look at things and think, well, actually, there's too much there. The vast majority of people will still only read a tiny percentage of the content. It will be the best stuff that dominates the most read. So it's always going to be quality, not quantity. You've always got to choose what to invest in, all of that. But at the same time, all of a sudden, the amount of paper you've got has become limitless, because the internet doesn't care how much paper you've got.
Right. Okay, now I want to talk about social media as a tool for getting our browsers to become buyers. Social media, for me, I was saying earlier that I was quite shocked by myself that I looked at an Instagram photograph on a Jimmy Choo account, a company that I actually work for, saw a girl wearing a pair of boots and actually called the store and bought the pair of shoes that afternoon. That I felt that
you're their dream customer.
I mean, I felt really annoyed that I'd become that person. By the way, I feel like Zach Galifianakis between 2 ferns on this whole thing. If my hair starts climbing up the fern, please someone tell me. But so I went and bought these boots, and I was absolutely shocked at myself, but I did go and do it. Therefore, for me, I would say that was an incredibly powerful sales tool. Would you agree first? And I would also like to ask you, as a man, if I can call you out on that, which is, are you acting quickly on something like Instagram, or is it more Twitter or Pinterest or something more for the technology? So we'll go to both of you.
That's fine. I mean, look, Instagram is becoming more and more important. If you talk to most retailers and you talk to Shopstyle, Instagram, Pinterest, those are the places where we want to be. I'm not quite sure about the conversion. I think your case is, as I said, every retailer's dream.
I mean, if we could do click to buy on Instagram, would that be an incredible tool?
I think it'll be an incredible tool for anybody. I think you're starting to see, at Shopstyle, we have Shopstyle It. You have Like to Know It. There are people who are actually actively trying to do purchasable Instagram. Pinterest, as everyone knows, that they may or may not have heard that they're looking at taking off affiliate links, which kind of raised everyone's eyebrows last week, because you clearly know that they're trying to monetize for themselves. I mean, you see that everyone's trying to figure out how to make money off of all of the people who are actually looking and consuming all of these images at the moment. The question is how, what is inspiring somebody from a particular image? I think in your case, I don't know if you saw an individual or if it was actually marketing from them.
It was an individual. I'm so upset that I'm copying someone else's style.
No, that's okay. I think a lot of people want to do it. I think the question is, and I think we were talking about this earlier about content, is kind of content and commerce and kind of going back, because I think social media is very, very important. I think it's a tough nut to crack. I think a lot of people are like, how many followers do you have? At the end of the day, I would say that most people were sitting and thinking to themselves, I might have 3 million followers on Facebook, but how am I monetizing them, right? Because a lot of people are not directly purchasing from it. So they don't see the ROI that comes from it. But then you look at content and commerce, and everyone's saying, oh, well, where is it? Is it successful? A lot of people are trying to merge the two together, and I don't really feel like anybody's being completely successful. And I think that's where you also see the social aspect with social shopping as well. I still am not convinced of it at the moment.
If you had a month's salary to spend on a young, lovely assistant, would you spend that month's salary creating really strong content for your site, or would you spend it on creating some beautiful social media that can be spread out across Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Facebook?
Oh, that's a really good question.
I mean, what would result in more?
You know what? It depends on the base that you have, because I think there are a lot of people who create amazing content for Facebook and for Instagram and for Pinterest, but unless you have the followers, it doesn't really matter, right? And I've seen a lot of effort. I'll be honest. 2 years ago when I started, I remember looking at our numbers from social media, and every week they'd be and the numbers have changed over time. I just want everyone to know, but they would come in and they would say, "Oh, look, we've grown 100%," and it would go from like 2 to 4, and I'd be like, how much time are you spending on this? Yeah. And it was like literally like 50% of their time. I'm going like, no, it's got to stop, right? Until we figure out how we're going to get the followers first. I don't want you to spend all of this time creating beautiful content that's being wasted. I would rather be more creative, go and talk to the retailers, figure out how we can actually get more traffic to them to actually make us valuable to them.
I think on the social shopping, I feel like on my own Facebook feed, the main advert is for thousands of different services of personal shopping aimed specifically at blokes, because they assume that I have no ability to choose my own trousers. And it's it's so patronising, and yet it's obviously a huge market. I can understand why they want to get there.
Well, the menswear is a huge market. The way that they're going about actually approaching you is not the way that you're going to actually do it.
It says to me that if I phone someone up and describe to them what I'd like to look like, then they will ultimately plug me into whichever category they've put me into, and then I'll end up with the same box that 1,000 other guys in South London will end up with. And that doesn't make social sense. That's the opposite of anything social. Social is about being highly personalised. And the problem is there isn't an obvious solution to that. It's not being highly personalised and scalable is not going to happen anytime soon when it comes to actually buying stuff.
Yeah, but you go through all these apps, and we were talking about this earlier. I mean, you're right. Actually, I find it really interesting because all this personal styling and all these apps, for some reason, they are targeted towards men. I think it's amazing, actually. But I've signed up for many of them, and after I do, just because I like to see what people are doing. I know, but I like to see what. And actually, for us. I always have this is the year of, it's like the year of mobile. This is for Shopstyle, the year of men, because I've said I wanted to grow my menswear category because I feel like it should be a bigger proportion of actually what we're doing at the moment. But when you look at those apps, the personal styling apps, they're just not sustainable, right? I mean, you basically have somebody in the background trying to pick out an outfit if it's not, automated through some algorithm, and then it's very limited oftentimes to the amount of retailers that are actually sitting behind it. So I feel for you as a guy. I think there's a lot more.
It's your year. You're
I'll
fine.
come-
It's your
yeah,
year,
exactly.
man.
Yeah, come to Shopstyle. But then I think there's a lot of noise out there for women in terms of kind of the social shopping, and there's a lot of noise out there for men in terms of personal styling.
Do you on Instagram and you see something? Would you act on it and call the store and say, "I want that because it looks really good on that person"?
I
would you do
admire
that?
your
Would you do
style,
that?
but I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm not. I
I mean, we have this
haven't
whole
done that.
street style phenomenon, cultural
Yeah.
phenomenon, which is, we've had originally the supermodels with the icons, then we moved to the celebrities, and now we're definitely
bloggers.
seeing the kind of the social media stars and the street style stars as style icons and style inspirers.
I mean, I
What's
think the
equivalent
short
for you?
answer in principle is yes. But whether that's Joe Ellison saying this looks brilliant, go and buy it, or whether it's the brand themselves saying this looks brilliant, go and buy it. I don't differentiate as much as I used to, but I'm still absolutely looking for that kind of mediation. And the brands are still mediating themselves in the sense that they're saying these boots, not those boots, right? So and obviously, I'm sure if you look across the whole feed, you'll miraculously get every product they sell. But in terms of the experience that you get, there is an element of choice. It's about narrowing the pyramid, isn't it?
And is the immediacy, have you felt, I know certainly for me, the immediacy with which I want something, i.e. House of Cards, which I watched about 6 hours of in a row yesterday, but also with shopping, is that also for you the same social behaviour that's going across all your peers?
Yes.
I ask you both that question.
Yeah,
Are we all feeling that?
I think it is, although what I don't, all that stuff about, I've just bought this, share it on whatever medium, I just don't see that at all. I don't think I've ever told anyone, amongst your friends you might say, I got this, it's great, but you don't broadcast this stuff to the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't tell them that you bought your 40-inch television and you live on a particular street.
No, I don't know why.
No, I mean, I'm I'm with you. I think on the social broadcasting, I was going back to the apps, and kind of when we were preparing for this conversation, I was just like looking at all the stuff out there and all the feedback and all the things that people are trying to say. Look, communicate with me. Share what you like. And actually, I feel that buying is something that's quite personal. Like, I think that you can be inspired. I think you can take hints from people. I think you can decide what it is that's your own personal style. I think you can follow what other people have for a personal style. But very rarely, when you're actually at the point of purchasing, is like looking at a feed from somebody going to be the thing that inspires you to buy something. I just don't see it at the moment.
Okay, I want to talk next about persuasion messaging, which for me, I find highly effective as a consumer. When I'm looking at something, be it a hotel room or a shoe, and they're saying 5 people looked at it in the last 5 minutes, or 3 pairs left, or you bought something similar last week. Are you looking at something like that with Shopstyle? Is that proving very effective? Or?
It's a little bit harder for us because we deal with 1,400 retailers worldwide and over 12 million products. We are highly dependent upon the inventory systems that are sitting behind and actually all of the feeds that we're receiving. So, we do both receive feeds in and we also crawl people's sites to get the data. So it's not as perfect of a science. I think the worst thing that happens when you go to a site, though, is when you come to a site, you look at something, you click on it because you want to buy it, and then you get there, and the information that's on the other side doesn't match up with that, or it's sold out. Like, I did that today. I was going through one of the apps, and I found something I liked, and I clicked on it to say buy, and then I get there, and it says sold out. So, I've disappointed my customer if I am providing somebody with a search result that actually isn't available to somebody, right? So I feel like it's super important that actually, and this goes back to the retailers. I mean, a lot of you are retailers here. At the end of the day, having updated inventory, making sure that your pricing is correct, making sure that you have, tell people what sizes are available. What you don't want is somebody who's actually interested in coming to your site to, be misled and get there and be disappointed. Because they won't come back again. It's a waste of time and they won't come back again. Yeah. And they won't trust that you're actually providing them with the best service possible.
And how are we regarding video? For me now, when I shop, I absolutely love it when somebody's got not only beautifully photographed product, also please, can everybody say what size the model is wearing?
Yeah.
It's such an obvious thing, and it would save gazillion pounds in returns for all of our energies.
That's why you like net.
Yeah, because it says what size the model is wearing,
Yeah.
and then I can compare.
Yeah.
But video, I find, is very, very, very effective for me. I don't know if that's something that you've seen with the sites that you work with who do that as better sales.
Well, I think things like Vine and that sort of stuff work really well, because I'm not going to watch, even if you're thinking about buying something really expensive, you either want the 5-minute film about how it's made and all that stuff, or you want the very short, this is how it looks when you move. That's
Yeah.
I think
that's
there's not a lot in
I
between.
want that.
looking
I
for,
just want to
right?
see
She
how
wants
it
to
looks.
see how
Yeah,
it looks.
exactly.
It's the 3D situation
Yeah.
that it brings us back to Metail, basically, is what
Yeah.
I want. I want to see it in a 3D way.
Yeah. I think video is important. We're still predominantly showing, the image, the product description that's there. But like, for instance, we actually have a program called Shopsense, which is where influencers can monetize their blogs by sharing links. And one of the things that we have done is implemented technology where individuals are able to tag their videos so they can monetize their videos.
Okay.
So it's actually within the actual video itself that if you see a pair of Jimmy Choo shoes that you like, that you can sit there and tag it when it actually appears. And it's not sitting at the bottom, it's actually sitting in the video, and then somebody can actually click on it and purchase it.
And it's in the same way that Amazon has got details of every star in every scene, in every film, and you can sort of, we're not far away from someone going back and doing that, so that you can buy all the stuff in back catalogue stuff, rather than the sort of let's just try one experimental film and say, oh, I like that coat or
But at some point you're going to have, the same way that you have with DVRs, where people are taking the video, taking the advertising out. I think, there's a certain time and place where people actually want to be sold to. And I think there's another time and place where people don't want their experience to be interfered with.
But that's why it sounds so silly, but that's why the metadata is really interesting. So if I want to know that if I press pause because I like that thing, there is the option of saying, let's buy that light or whatever. And once you get to a world where that is ubiquitous, then suddenly everything is for sale, and you've solved a whole load of sort of retail conundrums. But we are a long, long way away from that.
Okay, and I want to also talk about personalised pricing. Matt, you can talk about that.
It's really, we were talking about this earlier. So the idea that I get charged something, I get charged a different price from you or from you, is that, well, that's always happened.
On the same site.
On the same site. And that's always happened in the sense that retailers will target some customers with vouchers for money off and that sort of thing. But at the same time, it sort of feels deeply unethical. It's sort of the idea that product is, that pint of milk is 20p if you go into the shop and 45p if I go into the shop. It's like, well, why is that different from a coat or whatever? I think I find it really hard to justify, but it seems kind of inevitable, because
Is it happening
it's
a
what
lot
the internet allows.
in your experience?
It's happening. No, is the short answer. It's beginning to happen in certain spheres. I think it will cause so. It feels to me like it's one of those areas where it will start to happen. People will get called out for it an awful lot. Then there'll be this sort of self-righteous, we're not going to do it, from a whole load of brands, and then we'll forget about it.
And it's based solely on they just know the RIP address and can say, oh, you live in an affluent centre in London, therefore I'm going to charge you £24 on this handbag.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a mixture of that and browsing history through cookies and all that stuff.
And trying to entice you to come back. It's all those kinds of things. Are you rewarded?
And a lot of the different airline, like Priceline, for instance, got into trouble for doing similar stuff, because they would say the price is going down and down and down, and then you would clear your cash,
Cookies.
and then it would say, and they'd say, oh, look, the price has gone back down again.
Okay.
So it's that was something that I think was a bad experiment, but people quite quickly learned didn't work. So I think it's probably not going to happen as much, but it's going to be an interesting and probably slightly unfortunate period in the meantime.